These are the most disturbing crimes that happen in the Loud House community, and as the video progresses, the cases will just keep getting worse. The Loud House is a popular Nickelodeon animated series centered around an 11-year-old boy named Lincoln and his 10 sisters. It began airing on May 2nd, 2016, and 10 years later, the show had produced 9 seasons, a spin-off series, several animated films, and live-action adaptations, making it one of Nickelodeon's most successful titles in recent years. And with some episodes having as many as 2.2 million viewers, many fans started creating content inspired by the franchise. One of these creators was Javi Zutsumiya, who I'll just be calling Javi for short, whose creations on the art-sharing platform DeviantArt closely resembled the original show. But Javi's convincing art style made his work even more disturbing, since he often portrayed not-of-age characters from the show in inappropriate situations. He even made artworks where Lincoln had a family with his younger goth sister Lucy, making him known in the community as someone who supported loudcest, which is a disturbing non-canon subculture in the community that creates fanfiction portraying Lincoln in an inappropriate relationship with either one or sometimes even more than one of his sisters. And although the loudcest content already made most people uncomfortable, Javi's most popular fan comic took things even darker. Beginning on April 23rd, 2019, Javi began posting his fan comic titled It's Not Your Fault. The first page showed an older Luna, the third oldest sister and the musician of the family, approaching her childhood home in what looked like the Christmas season. It was implied that Luna hadn't seen her family in years because of something she did that made her ashamed. And just when Luna began hesitating about this family reunion, someone opened the door, but Luna hid away just before the girl at the door could actually see her. The girl, whose name was Lena, turned out to be Lincoln's daughter. She told her father that she thought she heard Luna outside, expecting her long-lost aunt to show up that day. However, Lincoln doubted that his older sister would arrive. Instead, he asked Lena to help her aunt Lucy with finding her vampire bust in the attic. And as she began looking for it, Lena discovered Luna's broken guitar, which finally made her ask Lucy about what happened that made Luna leave the family. And this is where Lena revealed that days ago, she had actually encountered Luna by accident. And that's when she invited her long-lost aunt over for dinner on Christmas. However, Luna hinted that she did something that broke the family apart. And though Luna refused to say what it was, Lena wanted to know the truth. So she threatened to break Lucy's vampire bust if she didn't tell her the full story. And since the bust was her prized possession, Lucy had no choice but to tell her the horrible truth. It turns out 11 years ago, Lena's mother, Sam, was introduced to the Loud family as Luna's girlfriend. Despite her family accepting Sam, Luna worried that her chaotic siblings would ruin their relationship. So she later made a deal with Lincoln that she would help him with his crush, Stella, in exchange for him keeping their sisters away from Sam. Now the following day, Sam and Luna's friend, Mazzy, announced that she signed them up for a battle of the bands. Meanwhile, Lincoln tried to talk to Stella, using Luna's advice about being confident. Now Stella hesitated about dating him at first, but after recalling how much he'd helped her when she transferred to the school, she agreed to be Lincoln's girlfriend. The two then shared their first kiss, which was accidentally witnessed by Lincoln's friends, but luckily his friends supported him, all except Rusty, who was jealous since he liked Stella as well. Now later at home, Luna shared her nervousness about performing in Battle of the Bands, so Lincoln promised to help them practice. Now weeks later, Luna was still so stressed about the performance that she took her frustration out on Sam. She accused Sam of flirting with Lincoln since she spent more time with him whenever she visited their house. Now to make matters worse, Luna believed her girlfriend only got so close with the family since Sam's father abandoned him, and hearing that triggered Sam's trauma of seeing her father leave, so she ran off as well. Now Lincoln later found Sam crying in the rain. Worried, he convinced her to go to their house to warm up, and since none of his siblings or his parents were home, Lincoln and Sam were left alone while waiting for the rain to stop. Now during this, Lincoln noticed that Sam had marks on her arms since she'd been harming her skin. Sam admitted that since her parents' divorce, both her and her younger brother hadn't been the same, and this is why she started attacking herself. Now to help her feel better, Lincoln played some music and danced with her, unaware that Rusty had passed by and had now seen him with another girl. Now with Rusty jealous over Lincoln dating Stella, he decided to record the moment to destroy the two's relationship. And just then, Sam teased Lincoln about kissing her, which Rusty thought was a perfect moment to capture. However, she was only joking and had Lincoln kiss Lucy's vampire bust instead. Now a disappointed Rusty ran just as Luna arrived to apologize to Sam. Still, Rusty had enough photos to edit and make it look like Sam and Lincoln actually kissed. He immediately sent it to everyone in school, which reached Luna, Sam, and Lincoln that same night. Now this led to Luna confronting her brother and her girlfriend, destroying the chance of repairing their relationship. And worst of all, by the following day, Sam got bullied for allegedly kissing a younger person, as she was around 4 years older than Lincoln, who, unlike her, was still not of age. And so she ran away and hid from everyone. Meanwhile, Stella broke up with Lincoln, and with his girlfriend and even his sisters blaming him for what happened, he isolated himself from his family. One night, a depressed Lincoln receives a text from an unknown number, asking him to meet at school, and to his surprise, the person who texted him was a drunken Sam, who led him to the music room to kiss him. Now Lincoln rejected her, but Sam argued that since everyone thought she attacked a smaller person like him, she might as well be a real criminal. Now Lincoln tried to comfort her and promised to clear her name, but this only convinced Sam that she wanted to be with him, even if it was by force. And so the night that followed would traumatize Lincoln, as Sam got exactly what she wanted. Now days later, his siblings managed to prove that the photo of him and Sam was a fake. Learning this, Luna tried to apologize to her brother, but none of them knew what happened between him and Sam. So Lincoln continued to shut himself from everyone as he tried to cope with that evening. Meanwhile, Sam was worried because she got a positive on the pregnancy test. This revealed that their daughter, Lena, was the result of a disturbing crime against Lincoln. Now while many eagerly followed the fan comic for the dark themes and accurate artwork, many were also very disturbed. People questioned, why is Luna treated like a villain when Sam is the one who actually decided to touch a smaller person? And another person worried that, I feel like someone should check this artist's hard drive. I swear they made more questionable art. Now the community was also bothered by how Javi treated the Lincoln and Sam ship like a normal relationship, despite how traumatic it began. He even made shorter comics that depicted the two having an active intimate life that Lincoln's parents supported. One YouTube commenter tried to explain this by saying, when you know that victims often become hyperactive about intimacy as a trauma response, the scene with Lincoln and Sam talking about how much private evenings they have hits kinda like psychological horror. After It's Not Your Fault's Part 1 ended 3 years later, on May 24th, 2022, DeviantArt user Real Gilbert Gann posted a journal in August of the same year, saying that Javi is in fact a nutcase who's drawn a series of NSFW works that mostly containing not-of-age characters doing explicit stuff. About his comic on Sam and Lincoln, it just glorifies stuff like homophobia, hating certain characters, most specifically Luna Loud, and intimate attacks in one of those pages, where an intoxicated Sam Sharp committed the crime on Lincoln without consent and got pregnant. His other comic, titled More Than a Love Potion, on his Pixiv, even justified the glorification of sibling relationships, where in an alt universe, Lincoln and Lucy, along with other girls above or around Lincoln's age, had intimacy with them. Now another user, named Redeeming Deviant, also added Javi to their list of artists to avoid, due to their questionable art. Now despite the criticisms against him, Javi continued with part 2 of his fan comic, which diverted from the family drama into something more like a science fiction thriller. Now while Javi created an alternate story that made a lot of Loud House fans uncomfortable, the next artist's creation got real people involved in their strange fantasies.
Continuing the legacy of the almighty dev Cat Scratch with Blowtunes, to continuing to contribute to this cult of deviants besmirching the Loud House characters, which was rightfully taken down back in late 2019, mind you, and she thinks it's unjustified since she apparently contributed to nothing on there.
Now another Loud House content creator famous for all the wrong reasons was Montana Jackson, better known as Tana Sweet 123 on DeviantArt. On the surface, she was just a DeviantArt artist in her late 20s who drew fan art for a Nickelodeon cartoon, but since 2017, her regular fan arts have been mixed with something else entirely. Montana had a specific way of drawing characters that looked absurd at first, but grew more disturbing the more she made them. This was because Montana was drawing the Loud House siblings, all of whom weren't even college level, in these strange bloated bodies, like they were inflated balloons. Now this style of drawing had many names, like morbid obesity scenarios, body expansions, and blueberry inflations. And while they might be mistaken as comical content, these inflated drawings were actually made to satisfy a certain adult audience, with rather specific and peculiar obsessions and interests. Now this style used on a show made for younger viewers was already troubling enough, but Montana took it further by drawing all the Loud siblings this way, including the youngest, Lily, who was still in diapers. And with DeviantArt being easily accessible to any Loud House fan, those within the actual target audience of the show could see Montana's artwork. Now Montana faced criticisms over her art throughout the years, and she repeatedly denied that her artwork was meant to be mature. However, she did submit her artworks to a Loud House DeviantArt group called Specific Interest House. The group name itself announced what the artworks were meant for, so they were eventually taken down in 2019, to which Montana responded by saying, "The site deleted the Specific Interest House due to inappropriate content. It's not fair. I never use anything overly mature. When will this badness end?" Now throughout the years, Montana would post reviews on what was appropriate for shows meant for smaller humans, which many had criticized her for. Like when Disney released a reimagined version of their short animated film Knickknacks in 2003, Montana complained about a change in one character's design. She said in an August 2021 post, "As if Disney couldn't get any more carried away with their kid-friendliness. They edited out the classic short, Knickknack, and made Miami's chest flat. Disney needs to stop making nearly every girl flat-chested and give them naturally big chests, for God's sake." And then a year later, when a fan-made series called Little in the Loud House got removed from YouTube for inappropriate content in 2022, Montana posted on her DeviantArt and said, "I swear YouTube is being run by monkeys nowadays. When someone uploads an uncensored video with blurred lines, it's okay. But when someone uploads something cute and innocent like that of a giant woman, where in 2 episodes of Little in the Loud House we see Tiny Lincoln jumping on Luna's belly or napping on Lily's belly, they think it's a no, just because they think bare bellies on cartoon kids and teens is wrong?" Now, given Montana's art and her views on what was appropriate for cartoons, YouTuber PMZ Power posted a now deleted video in August of 2021 where he called her a PDF file. Now, Montana posted on her DeviantArt about the video, telling her followers, "If you see the video, report it and take it down." And apparently this is how Montana handled criticism. As one thread detailed in the Loud House forum the same year, "She makes a lot of interesting art on smaller humans through inflation, gain weight for intimate purposes, and stuff like that. And not only that, she made unoriginal and cringeworthy content by making hate art, filled in reaction memes, and so on. Plus, she's a review poser that she bashed on the episode and any media she hates and used opinion as facts. You ask me, she's a woman child who cannot handle criticism and playing victim cards to get out her troubles whenever she gets called out for her disturbing interests and stuff like that." Now, despite this reputation, Montana maintained a loyal following, with the same commenter in the Loud House forum saying, "Let's not get started on her fanbase, aka white knighting, who not only wastes no time defending her, block botting, and mass abusing report when someone rants on her, mindlessly defend her art on smaller humans, and promote themselves PDF file apologists." By the way, in case you didn't know, the term white knight means an internet user who rushes to defend other users in hopes of getting romantic favors or validation in return. And one of these people who Montana had accused of being a white knight was a DeviantArt user called BlueSpider17, who pushed back when another user named Darkrai called their art an attack on smaller humans around June 2022. Now, BlueSpider responded to this by saying, "He claimed that Tana's Sweet 123 drew Mei Lee from turning red in her underwear, and the fact that she's a middle schooler is other proof that my friend is a PDF file. Has he not seen most shows? Smaller people are shown in their underwear, yet the writers behind those aren't PDF files as far as I'm concerned." Now, another of Montana's defenders, Loud Harvey Lefty, added to this post and said, "Don't like it? Go look at something else." Now, the idea of "don't like it, don't look" has become the go-to argument for Montana defenders. And while they insisted that she was doing nothing wrong since her art was about fictional characters, things were about to get worse, because Nickelodeon was soon about to give Montana real faces to work with. On November 3rd, 2022, Nickelodeon released the first movie of The Really Loud House, a live-action adaptation of their animated series. And since it was a live-action movie, the Loud siblings were played by real actors, who were roughly the same age as their characters. Now, these real-life actors were inspired by Montana's art, as she also used their faces and edited them in the same inflated artworks, with actual smaller humans who could see themselves getting involved in this kind of art. Now, Montana's page eventually got bombarded with community reports, and this resulted in most of her inflation art getting removed from DeviantArt by late 2025. Though her page is still active and she continues to post to this day. Now, meanwhile, in this next case, multiple women's lives and careers were nearly destroyed just because they met the person behind the entire Loud House franchise.
As many as a dozen women came forward to accuse Chris of inappropriate behavior, which ranged from unwanted advances to threats of blacklisting after the end of consensual relationships with coworkers.
The Loud House was created by Chris Savino, who began his career in animation in 1991. He started out as a layout artist for the Ren and Stimpy show, and for over 2 decades, he built a solid portfolio by being a writer and storyboard artist for Dexter's Laboratory and the animation director for Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. Now, by the time The Loud House started airing, Chris had already been in the animation industry for nearly 3 decades. But his legacy came with disturbing stories. His secrets would begin to unravel in October of 2017, just a year and a half after the show first aired. Just days after the allegations against film producer Harvey Weinstein shook Hollywood, a group of female animators created a private Facebook group to discuss their own stories of harassment in their industry. And the very first story opened the floodgates against the Loud House creator himself. The post came from then 25-year-old storyboard artist Cheyenne Curtis, who described her experience when she was starting out in the animation industry 3 years ago. According to her, an influential showrunner offered to mentor her if she'd have an intimate relationship with him. Although Cheyenne didn't mention his name, several women in the Facebook group, including Cartoon Network manager Stacey Renfro, told her, "I know exactly who you're talking about." And every single one of these women pointed to one man, Chris Savino. Now, not long after Cheyenne's post, a wave of similar stories about Chris flooded to the group. Though their posts were never made public, some of them would come forward with their stories through interviews in the months that followed. One of them was then 35-year-old Anne Walker Farrell, who was the director for BoJack Horseman and their Mr. Men show. She claimed that back in 2004 and 2005, when she was in her early 20s, Chris had tried to convince her to send photos of her body and pressured her to engage in explicit conversations. Now, she also added a more detailed encounter with Chris back in 2012, when he was 41 and she was in her early 20s. She said,
"Chris kissed me, even though he knew he had power over me with his career and his age. I felt and still feel that his true intent was never to help my career, but to help himself to me."
Meanwhile, Stacey and film director Joanne Leach shared that Chris would talk to them about other women's appearances and his intimate fantasies, which they felt pressured to listen to, fearing he could damage their careers. Now, another woman, who I'll call Amy, shared that when she was 22,
"Chris had asked me for explicit pictures. Another night he sent me a picture of his private stuff and told me a dirty secret about how he did stuff to himself. Then years passed and I visited Nickelodeon to join one of my friends for lunch. He learned I was in town and started asking me again by text why I never visited him and being so annoying and aggressive. He also asked me to hook up with him before I left LA and told me if I would do inappropriate things with him, he would give me a freelance job as well."
Now, one of the Facebook group's administrators at the time was Megan Dawn, who was an artist for animated movies like How to Train Your Dragon 2 and Trolls. And when she saw the numerous stories against Chris, she decided to contact Nickelodeon's HR department directly to make a formal report. And the effect was actually immediate. On October 17, 2017, just days after the Facebook group started, Nickelodeon placed Chris on immediate suspension, and just 2 days later, on October 19th, the Loud House creator was officially fired from the network, while Michael Rubiner took over as the showrunner of the series. Now, 4 days after that, Chris posted a public apology on Facebook, saying,
"I am deeply sorry and I am ashamed. Although it was never my intention, I now understand that the impact of my actions and communications created an unacceptable environment. I have nothing but the deepest respect for the bravery of the women who've spoken out, trying to create an environment in which they can thrive and reach their fullest potential."
However, while speaking to BuzzFeed a year later, in June 2018, Megan responded to his apology with,
"I think I'm sorry is not enough."
Her response came months after she filed a legal complaint under the Animation Guild's bylaws in December 2017. The guild represented animation professionals in Hollywood, and Megan wanted Chris to face consequences for his harassment of women in the industry. 93 members of the union backed her up by signing the complaint, so a hearing was set 4 months later on April 7, 2018. On that day, 11 women spoke against Chris. 5 of them were direct victims and the other 6 were witnesses. And the accounts they shared covered experiences between 2004 and 2017 in 3 separate animation studios where Chris worked. Now, during the hearing, Chris didn't deny any of the allegations against him. Amy, the anonymous accuser, sent someone else to read her statement, as she didn't want to be in the same room as him. In her statement, she added,
"There's no way he could manipulate us anymore. None of his strategies would work anymore. I don't want to look at you. I don't have to look at you ever again."
Then, nearly 2 months later, on May 30th, 2018, after hearing the stories of multiple women, the Animation Guild ordered penalties against Chris. These included 40 hours of community service, a $5,000 fine donated to an organization that his victims chose, mandatory harassment training, and counseling. He was also suspended from the animation industry for 1 year, meaning that between early 2018 to 2019, he couldn't work with any studio whatsoever. Now, after years of Chris's unprofessional behavior, his victims saw justice finally being served. Now, despite the suspension being only for a year, Chris ended up choosing to leave the animation industry entirely. Instead, he shifted to publishing books, releasing Cold, a cautionary Christmas tale in 2019, and non-fiction guidebook called Writing Cartoons in 4X in 2020. As of today, The Loud House, the show he created, continues on Nickelodeon and grows into a full franchise without him. Now, while Chris targeted professionals in the industry, the next Loud House creator went after people that the cartoon was made for, and he wasn't shy about posting his disturbing stuff online.
2. Quit stalking women like you're Elmer Fudd hunting them down. Or Chris Chan. That makes more sense. And 3. Stop obsessing over the Loud House!
As with many popular franchises, the Loud House inspired artists from around the globe, with many of them posting their art on the site DeviantArt. One of the most well-known Loud House fan art creators was Jonathan Desjardins. However, Jonathan wasn't known for good reasons. He joined DeviantArt as FunnyTime77 in early 2011, 5 years before the Loud House even began airing, and within months, Jonathan became known for drawing characters inflated like balloons, much like Montana from one of our previous stories. Now, what people found uncomfortable was how, despite the characters being inflated, they were drawn in positions that were almost explicit.
For some reason he keeps doing the Microsoft Paint pictures of Sonic, Mario, and other characters if they were really fat or inflated. He also developed pictures of obese furries humping each other.
Now just months later in July 2011, critics began posting rants about Jonathan, calling him out for stealing art ideas, making low-effort fan arts, and creating inappropriate content. But this didn't stop Jonathan from posting and gathering more followers. And once Nickelodeon aired The Loud House in 2016, his entire DeviantArt page would revolve around that particular series. Jonathan treated the show as a masterpiece. He drew fan art, made crossovers using the characters, ran his own fan group called The Loudies, and encouraged anyone around him to watch the show. However, despite most of the main characters not even being old enough to drive, Jonathan would still draw them in his inflation style. Then around 2017, nearly 6 years after he began posting on his site, he posted a poll asking his followers which fictional character should be his girlfriend, and among the list were characters who were clearly not of age, including Violet from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, who was born barely a decade before the events of the movie. And between the poll and his constant inflation art, people suspected that Jonathan, who was already 22 at the time, was interested in smaller humans. And in 2019, his secrets would begin to unravel in front of the whole community. On March 13, 2019, a DeviantArt user named LawsLeBoy published a journal titled Calling Out FunnyTime77 yet again. There he claimed that Jonathan had
cheated on art trades, harassed female artists, bothered artists with inflation drawings, arrogantly tell people to give up their characters, and sent white knights to harass a person who didn't directly talk to him over a well-deserved ban from a server he was causing trouble in. I didn't even talk to him that much on the server, and it was Hunter and Hugh who were telling him not to send pics of inflated smaller humans since the rules said so.
And then 3 weeks later, on April 3rd, this post was followed by another post posted by a user named Empty Hammer, who claimed that
FunnyTime77 owns a Discord server in which several pieces on not-of-age characters are distributed and shown. The owner himself allows this to pass by, and will tag or ban anyone who tries to confront them over this, and immediately delete any form of proof.
Now, with more people becoming aware of his interest in this kind of fan art, Jonathan finally addressed the accusations against him, though only indirectly. On April 14, just over a week after Empty Hammer's post, he announced that he was leaving the Loud House fandom and closing the Loudies group, explaining that
I don't want to remember the dark past about my past mistakes, because I learned from my mistakes and I don't want to make that mistake again.
But 5 years later, the community had moved on from his troubling behavior. So on August 12, 2024, Wellner J50 posted a journal to expose what Jonathan had done during his time on DeviantArt. Besides the disturbing art and fixation over younger characters, Wellner detailed Jonathan's involvement with 2 users on DeviantArt. According to the post, Jonathan connected with DeviantArt user Mia the Pirate King back in 2016. At the time, Mia had just reached her teen years, while Jonathan was already in his 20s, and yet he convinced her to send him pictures of her stomach and feet. Now Mia sent the photos, but not long after, her mother found out and ordered her to deactivate her account. Now upon learning this, Jonathan had tried to convince Mia to disobey her mother, but ultimately she would actually delete the account. Now, apart from Mia's story, Wellner posted about Jonathan's obsession over DeviantArt artist Magic Christina KW, or Christina for short. Wellner claimed that he
draws fan art of her with her favorite cartoon characters, and once claimed her to be his girlfriend, when in reality she's not. If she blocked him rightfully, do you think he'd move on and forget about her? He would whine and moan until she unblocks him.
Now that same year in 2024, with numerous people calling him out over DeviantArt, Jonathan finally deactivated his own account, saying,
I feel like I kept on making too many mistakes, so I guess this is it. Goodbye everyone.
Since then, there have been no updates about Jonathan or whether Mia, Christina, or any other people he harassed ever confronted him outside of DeviantArt. Meanwhile, the next Loud House community member did more damage as he used emotional manipulation to control several of his younger fans.
Oye, ¿te puedo contar algo?
Sí, ¿qué cosa?
No le cuentes esto a nadie.
Promesa de mujeres.
Yo y Razek tuvimos una llamada y fue genial.
On July 10, 2017, a Peruvian YouTuber going by the name Razek02 created his channel, though he wouldn't upload anything until more than a year later, in August 2018. From then on, Razek became an active content creator for the Loud House community, but like the other creators we've talked about here, his creations were far too disturbing for a kids show. Apart from being poorly edited, the videos were mostly bizarre and inappropriate content about the Loud siblings, none of whom had even finished high school. He also covered other fan creations like It's Not Your Fault, even doing livestream interviews with the Loud House fanfic creators, including Javi from our first case. He also ran a Discord server where he presented himself as a friendly older voice, since Razek was in his early 20s, while most of the fans around him were often a decade younger. And with Razek gaining popularity in the Spanish-speaking Loud House fandom, his Discord server also grew into its own community. On February 11, 2021, 3 years after he started uploading videos, Razek held a voice call within the Discord server to chat with his friends and other server members. And this was when someone dropped an accusation that forever changed his image in the Loud House community. A user named Stress Coffee confronted Razek during the voice call, revealing that they've had a relationship despite him being 24 while she was 9 years younger. She added that Razek also pursued an intimate connection with another user named Luna Crystal, who was a year younger than her. He These accusations weren't without proof though, as Coffee had screenshots of Razek sending her and Luna inappropriate images. She also provided screenshots of her conversations with Luna about Razek where they discussed their relationship with him. Now members who were present in the Discord call immediately called out Razek for targeting the two, and instead of denying or defending himself, Razek simply broke down in tears and begged Luna and Coffee for forgiveness. And at one point he even mentioned that his mother was in the room with him and she heard everything, so she was threatening to kick him out of the house. But his attempt to gain sympathy from his Discord members didn't work, as many of them began demanding that he delete the server along with his YouTube channel. And yet the stories didn't end with this Discord call, because another server member named Spartronus, who was in his high school years, came out with his own testimony shortly afterward. He mentioned befriending another member who was also a fanfic creator. We'll call her Millie. According to Spartronus, Razek connected with her and began monitoring her Discord activities, even preventing her from working on other fan content outside of his own. And all this was happening when Millie hadn't even reached her teen years yet. Now with the stories of 3 smaller people coming out against Razek, he soon made his YouTube channel private. He would also delete both his Discord account and server, making it seem like the matter was settled. However, Razek wasn't ready to back down just yet, because in late March 2021, just weeks after he was exposed, he uploaded a new video on his YouTube channel titled "You're Not Alone, Razek." This video featured Razek as a creator talking about the infamous Discord call with another Loud House content creator, Leovio. Also in the video was one of Leovio's original characters, Diana, who was also much younger than Razek. There, Diana was confronting Razek about the allegations against him. Razek even acknowledged Diana's age when she discussed her childhood, which he clarified as her current situation. This, however, didn't stop Razek from wanting to talk about relationships, and when Diana got uncomfortable and wanted to leave, Razek tried to gain sympathy from her to make her stay. And besides using a younger character to draw sympathy, Razek also had a segment in his video where other fan creators, including Leovio, were rallying behind him, reminding him that he wasn't alone.
No estás solo, Razek.
No estás solo, César.
No estás solo, Razek.
No estás solo, Razek.
No estás solo.
Razek, tú no estás solo.
No estás solo, hermano.
No estás solo, chino.
Now, many in the community saw the video as an attempt to redirect sympathy towards himself, but there was also followers who supported Razek at this time. And not long after the video came out, Razek would upload a confession video on his channel, though he downplayed the situation, saying,
Lo cierto es que sí me involucré con 2 personas con las que no debía. Asimismo, deposité demasiada confianza en personas que no se lo merecían. Las 2 personas involucradas no cumplen con la descripción de niñas, siendo ellas ya adolescentes. Si bien no tuve actitudes que se puedan considerar adecuadas, fui respetuoso y en ningún momento mostré intenciones de acoso con las personas involucradas. En ambos casos, los actos fueron consensuados, es decir, ambas partes estuvieron de acuerdo en realizar, por ejemplo, llamadas de índole adulta, donde sentí que cumplía con mi parte, por más rudo y bruto que fuera.
After trying to convince people that Coffee and Luna weren't the victims, Razek went on to discuss how the allegations affected him and his family.
Si bien mi familia y yo atravesamos un momento de mucho conflicto, todos estos contratiempos nos sirvieron para unirnos mucho más, sobre todo con mi madre, quien, junto a verdaderos amigos, evitaron que cometiera un pecado irremediable.
The sin he mentioned was his alleged attempt at ending his time on Earth, though there was no evidence that this incident really happened. Then, weeks after his confession, Razek began creating content on his channel again. And as he pretended that nothing happened, he also started deleting comments that mentioned his involvement with Coffee, Luna, and Millie. Meanwhile, Coffee began asking people to stop mentioning her story about Razek on social media. People found this odd, as exposing someone targeting these people was important to the community, making people wonder if she was being silenced. Now, nearly 5 years later, YouTuber La Red Del R, or Red for short, backed up this theory during his coverage of Razek's controversies on December 26, 2025. In the video, he documented how several online creators backed up Razek, and most of them had even appeared in his "You're Not Alone" video, making Red wonder if the Loud House community itself was protecting people like him. Now, this idea would be strengthened when Red also pointed out how most of these creators also made content that was kind of disturbing, painting a pattern of suspicious behavior among Razek's supporters. Now then, almost 4 months later, on April 19, 2026, Red would drop another video. This time it confirmed many of the theories against Razek and his supporters, because Coffee, the first victim who accused him, actually came out to tell her story.
Hola, yo soy Coffee, soy la chica que inició la funa previa a Razek. También soy la chica junto con la otra usuaria Luna que fuimos afectadas por el usuario de Razek.
Coffee would then detail how Razek was the one who pursued a relationship with her, even though he knew her age. Now, their relationship was as intimate as online relationships can get from the very start. But according to Coffee, it wasn't long before it became controlling, as Razek strictly prohibited her from telling anyone else about their relationship, and also forced her to cut off certain members of the server entirely. Now, despite this, Coffee stayed in the relationship because
La verdad es que me refugié en él porque Rasek tenía mucha influencia dentro de la comunidad y casi todo el mundo estaba del lado de él.
Now this all changed when Coffee learned about Luna getting involved with Razek, confirming that he was cheating on her. Coffee had become close with Luna during their time on Discord, and since she was younger, Coffee felt the need to protect Luna from Razek, and this was what finally made her reveal everything during that fateful Discord call. In Red's interview, Coffee also confirmed that many in the community knew about Razek's relationship with her and Luna before the call. This included content creator Shayamos MLP, who mostly made disturbing content about another show, My Little Pony, and surprisingly, Javi from our first case, who'd gotten closer to Razek by this point as well. Now Coffee also clarified the reason why she was asking people to stop talking about the story after the public call-up. It turned out that Razek had attempted to sue her, even calling in a friend whom he claimed was a lawyer.
Según ellos, querían denunciarme por difamación al haberle arruinado la carrera, y todo este complot lo quisieron sustentar con la edad de consentimiento en Perú, que es de 14.
Now she also confirmed to have received threats from Razek's fans, with some of them even leaking her mobile number and real photos online. And since she was in high school at the time, this pressured Coffee to ask people to stop talking about Razek. Now this was until Red's video came out, and she found the courage to speak out. Red himself also received threatening messages from Razek's supporters, after he included their names in his first video. Now around the same time, an anonymous user who claimed to be the brother of Double Eloy came forward. Eloy was one of the people Red called out for supporting Razek in his previous video, but as it turned out, Eloy had only joined Razek's supporters to gather evidence against him. Unfortunately, he never got the chance to make the evidence public, because on February 22nd, 2022, a year after the allegations began, Eloy actually died after struggling with leukemia. And as of writing this, Razek himself hasn't approached Red about the videos. Instead, by early 2026, his YouTube channel would finally be deleted, a full 5 years after the allegations came to light. And while Razek's reputation was damaged for sure, at least his online activity didn't lead to any legal trouble, unlike this next person.
There's always some dark corner of the internet you haven't visited, where there's a big boogeyman hiding. A Loud House fan comic so messed up that it led to the arrest of its creator.
By now, we've discussed how some members of the Loud House community took things too far, but this fan comic, simply titled The Loud Comic, was on a whole different level. The fan comic, released 10 years ago in mid-2016, was created by DeviantArt user JumpJump69, or JJ for short, who chose Luann Loud, the high school comedian and the fourth oldest child of the family, as his main character. But in this alternate universe of the show, she was obsessed with the show's protagonist and her younger brother, Lincoln. The comic included a lot of uncomfortable scenes between the Loud siblings, which included loud cess, stalking, and even murder. And much like Javi from our earlier story, JJ's art was alarmingly similar to the original show, making it look like an official comic. Since he involved beloved characters in disturbing scenarios, many called out JJ's comic, and eventually the people created a group known as the Safe House on Tumblr, which is a fan community platform. This group gathered people who were against the inappropriate content being produced using the Loud House characters, and they would also begin reporting JJ's comic, but nothing ever happened, for a while at least. That was until 2017, about a year after his comic was released, when one of the Safe House members discovered that JJ lived in the United Kingdom, where laws about inappropriate content were much stricter. Under UK law, it's illegal to draw cartoon depictions of younger people in explicit scenarios, even if no real person is involved. And with this, JJ's Tumblr was reported to the Internet Watch Foundation, or the IWF, the organization enforcing the UK laws on internet crime. And within days of that report being filed, nearly every one of JJ's accounts vanished. And then, in October 2017, JJ posted one final comic titled Jump Jump's Last Message on his new Tumblr page. The comic showed JJ himself sending a letter to Lincoln saying,
"Dearest Lincoln, I must leave you. Why? I cannot say. Where I'm going, you cannot know. How I will get there, I haven't decided yet. But one thing I can tell you, anytime I hear the window blow, it will whisper the name Lincoln."
Now this message left followers kind of confused, given that they didn't know about the IWF report. But then, almost 4 months later, on January 31st, 2018, JJ posted an explanation on a new social media account, saying,
"It all started when a certain person decided to contact the authorities and tell them that I was up to no good. But from what I was told, they were told a little more. They were told that I just happened to be doing the one thing that you cannot do and will 100% get you in trouble. And so because of that, I was arrested in October. I had everything of mine removed, so all the projects I had been working on is now gone. Also because of this, I had my children taken away. I cannot begin to describe the absolute anguish that happens when you see the look on your children's faces when they are being taken away and they don't understand why their mother and father ain't coming with them."
As it turned out, JJ was a married man, and according to him, the IWF report didn't just erase his social media pages, it sent a police raid to his home in October 2017. Officers searched JJ's home and seized his computers and devices, whilst children were temporarily removed by social services. And JJ was then arrested for making and sharing inappropriate content involving younger fictional characters. However, the allegation that the police received was apparently worse than what his fan comic actually was. Based on JJ's story, the anonymous reporter claimed that his content was traced from real photographs of people who weren't of age. Now what followed was months of legal battle, including JJ's fight to gain back custody of his kids. Now this case also pushed JJ to a breaking point, where he considered checking out from the world early. But in the end, since no evidence was found that his comics were based on real people, the judge ruled in his favor in January 2018, and his children were returned to their homes. But JJ himself had to leave until he could pass evaluations proving that he wasn't a danger to his family, and this left him homeless for now. But to JJ,
this is the first time since October that something good has happened, and I finally feel like I have my feet back on the ground.
Now learning this, the fandom was divided. Some believed that creators like JJ needed to face legal troubles to stop the inappropriate content, while others treated the court outcome as proof that the Safe House group went too far. However, on November 21st, 2019, almost 2 years after JJ won the legal battle, an anonymous Loud House fan, who I'll call Vicky, told her story to a journalist on a publishing platform called Media, and Vicky claimed that she was the one who reported JJ to the IWF, but she clarified that she didn't mean to take things too far.
Jumjo made a post and even told me himself that he knows who got him in trouble, and said person apparently told the police he was using real-life inappropriate material to draw his Loud House stuff with. Again, I'm not sure how true it is, but that's what everyone believes now. So JJ says that he was arrested for tracing inappropriate material. I think I got him arrested because I alerted the IWF. So in the end, I really have no confirmation if IWF has any part to it.
This meant that the claim about JJ using real material for his comic might have come from someone else, not the actual Safe House group. Now, despite already getting into legal trouble for his art and even temporarily losing custody of his own children, JJ has returned to creating art online, even continuing the Loud comic, which is still ongoing as of early 2026. And while the court has decided that JJ didn't directly harm a real person for his creations, the next Loud House fan was caught doing something far more dangerous.
Found out that Purple Dino 100 got arrested. He was sent to jail like earlier this year.
What? Are you serious?
On September 13, 2024, at the Northside Park in Philadelphia, Mississippi, parents left their daughter, who I'll be calling Mary, while she was eating chips. What they didn't notice though was that at around 5:30 in the afternoon, a 23-year-old man had approached her and began sharing her snack without her permission. The man then invited her to his car to play a tickle game. The man was Denzel Clements, better known online as Purple Dino 100. He began posting the Loud House content on DeviantArt around 8 years earlier in 2016. His signature style was creating crossover content with the Loud House and the children's show Barney and Friends. In 2019, he began what he called the Barney House, which was his own alternate fan universe where the characters from Barney and Friends lived with the Loud House family. Both shows were made for younger audiences, so Denzel's work became widely accepted by young fans of these franchises. And beside the artwork on DeviantArt, Denzel also had a YouTube channel where he posted his speed paintings, along with his Barney impressions.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Pat Sajak and Vanna White.
Now, Denzel was open about being a big fan of Barney and Friends, so much so that on his 22nd birthday in 2021, he purchased a cameo video from Bob West, the original voice actor of Barney. Cameo is a website where fans could pay a celebrity to send a dedicated video for them, and for his birthday, Bob West sent this.
I hear that you have a birthday coming up, so, a certain someone and I are here to say happy birthday. Me! That's right!
Now, given his art and enthusiasm for the Loud House and Barney and Friends, Denzel seemed like an artist who didn't outgrow his childhood favorites. However, his actions offline would not be as innocent. On that September afternoon in 2024, Denzel tried to convince Mary, whom he didn't know personally, to go to his car, and her response was luckily to scream. Now, her parents were fortunately nearby, and they quickly rushed to her and called the police on Denzel, who immediately arrested him for attempted kidnapping. Now, despite what he did, he spent only 3 days in jail before getting let out. Now, the police claimed that they discovered Denzel had a history of mental illness, though they didn't clarify whether this was the reason he was released from jail. Now, the story went quiet since there was no news report about it, aside from one article on an online news provider, the Neshoba Democrat. That changed more than 2 months later on December 2nd though, when DeviantArt user SMBesties posted a warning saying,
"If you're following at Purple Dino 100, please be cautious, block and report."
This post was followed by the article talking about him for people to confirm what Denzel had done. And just days later, Calvin Havani, another Loud House fan and streamer, broke the news to his audience during a live stream.
Found out that Purple Dino 100 got arrested. He was sent to jail like earlier this year.
What? Are you serious? What happened?
Well, he is trying to... I don't know. Maybe he was too obsessed with drawings of bare feet and tickling.
From then on, people spread the word about Donzel, and some shared stories of his behavior. One person commented that
he's been a creep for years, since he always made art of children getting tickled or their feet played with in some way.
As of making this video, there hasn't been any public announcement on whether Donzel was formally charged or not. However, he seemed to have returned to the online community in May of 2025, when an Instagram account named PurpleDino827 began posting art similar to his. However, his posts were bombarded with negative comments that mentioned the attempted kidnapping in 2024, and after June 2025, he stopped posting online and hasn't returned since.